I'm doing a tutorial today on the zipper pouch by Spunky Stitches. I'm happening to do the Minnie zipper pouch today, and I'm going to show you how I do a version of it with using just the fabrics, and I use a small piece of a pliable, more lightweight vinyl, not like a marine vinyl, so it's very pliable for the mini part, and I'm using an applique for the bow. I happen to print mine out from my software, and I measure everything and write my measurements down, so every time I go back to make this or another pouch I can reference down to my sizes, and it's quicker to cut out my fabric as well. I also do it in bulk as well, so I have everything cut out and ready to go. So I'm only going to commentate on things that I think are important or need to be stressed on, so otherwise I'm just going to run through the video. You can watch how I do everything, and when it comes to the sewing part I'll speed it up so it won't be so long for you. So I have all my materials ready to go. I've actually measured, and I only go about a half an inch more than what the actual measured size is, so my pieces are very close to the edge. That way I have minimal waste. That is my biggest pet peeve, is having minimal waste, because everything costs money, so you're trying to get the best out of and the value for your money. And the zipper, I'll show how I put the zipper in so that I actually keep one end with the metal part so the zipper won't come off the bag. So I have all my pieces, and one of the things that I put in my hoop is an actual fabric type stabilizer. It's not a tearaway. I use the Pellin Craft and Home Decor interfacing stabilizer, and I use number 40. So it's thin, it's going to stay in the bag, so it's not real heavy. It's not going to be a tearaway that as you're using the bag it's going to crunch up. This will actually stay in the bag, and it'll be nice and sewn and pliable. So here I go. I have my pieces. I've done fold over and ironing. This will be my front and my back on the outside. This will be my liner. I've done the same thing. I folded it over that probably about 5/8 of an inch, folded over and ironed it to make my pieces nice on the zipper. And then for my D-ring, where I'm going to attach my wristlet, this is just a scrap piece of vinyl that I kept from another project, and I've actually used it as a loop on my little D-ring so I can put my wristlet. Now I know that my wristlet was going to be on this end of the bag, so I put my zipper facing so that the opening is at the bottom of the bag, so when it hangs the zipper stays closed. Otherwise, if you zip it up to your wrist, then as it goes it starts to open your bag. So it's kind of a common sense that the zipper is placed so that the opening is on the downside of the bag if it would hang on your wrist. So just a little thing there on what I do for placing it. I also place the zipper metal piece just inside the line. I make sure I'm enough so that the needle pressure foot won't hit it, or the needle won't hit it. So it's just right below, but I leave that little metal piece of my zipper inside so that the zipper won't come off my bag. I spray my pieces with a little bit of tacky glue. It's not a harsh tacky glue, and it doesn't permanently stick unless you do both sides, so it actually it works really well. It doesn't bleed through the fabric. I actually skip a step. I don't bother to do that extra step or use my placement line because I already know where it's going to be or where it's going to lay. So I actually go and skip through the steps, and then I skip down to the bottom part to be attached. And I don't do the next following step for a placement line because I already know I'm going to lay it right at the top of my the ears for the Minnie or on that applique. So I actually jump that step as well. So it's just a saving of a step, saving of stitches, saving of thread, and cutting through our material. So I'm going to lay my vinyl piece for the bottom for my Minnie, and I sprayed it as well. And I'll sew out the next step to sew that bottom piece on. I cut this piece out just to save from the bulk. Some people leave it in. I cut it out. That's where I'm going to put my bow, so I cut that part out. I'll go ahead and let it sew the next step, which is the placement line for that, only to get the top of the bow to make sure it's in place. almost forgot. You gotta cut the outside of the Mickey off. I'm going to cut close to the stitching so it doesn't stick out when it does its satin stitch. There we go. Very important at this step to remember to cut the stabilizer away from where the zipper is. And there we go. Same thing with the back. I just spray glue it. And center it. You want it close enough to the zipper, but not too close that it's going to hit and get caught, and then you won't be able to open your bag. It's down. And this is also an important part, to make sure you open your zipper. You want to make sure that it's open. You can do it at this point or the next step. I do it sooner the better once I'm sewing, so that I don't forget, and I move it all the way over to as close as I can to my end. Alright. So you see, I jumped the gun on the zipper, so do not pull the zipper yet until the next step. So I messed up. It happens, so letting you know with my mess ups. Not to open that zipper yet, I forgot about that part. So now I place my D-ring with my a strap for my strap, so it's got my vinyl there, and I stitched out a little spot there, and I taped this part down, and it's going to sew the spot. Alright, now's the time to open your zipper. And I also leave the tape taped down so that this doesn't move or jump up or anything on the next step, so it doesn't get caught in the needle. And open the zipper. I tape this down to keep my zipper together. And the next piece is going to be the outside back piece. A lot of people get confused on this. So face to face, this will be the outside back piece. And the bottom part is where it's going to be opening and closing, and the most use is the bottom, so I leave a little extra at the bottom. This time I'll use a little bit of tape. Corners where the bulkness is. And I make sure everything's sewed good before I even pop it out of the hoop. A couple times I've been in a hurry, did that, and did not check the back. So one of the important tips. And enough at the bottom for the opening. Perfect. Just enough. Got close there, but I'm good. All right. And I cut from the back side, so I don't cut through this. You want to leave the opening a little extra longer. Wow. You want to leave the back a little extra material so that you'll be folding over and doing a heat and bond strip or hand sewn, however you want to close that up. And I cut about 1/4 of an inch. The corners I get really close because there's bulk in the corners. And where the zippers are, I usually cut around them so that I can leave that little extra. So I'm not cutting right at the corner just in case the stitching comes up or something. That zipper's not going to come off. And this happens to be the end also where I left the metal part, but just to be on the safe side, I always leave a little extra zipper piece in there. There's my zipper again. I'm going to leave an extra length in there. Always leave a little bit of an extra length just in case. You want that folded over so the zipper doesn't come off the end. Okay. Around the zipper. And sometimes if it's a little stiffer vinyl, or I would actually iron it a little bit just to get it loosened up so I'll be able to turn it. But I don't think I'll have much of a problem on turning this. Where this piece of vinyl is, I do want to cut this down a little bit, so I pull it out just so there's not that whole lot of bulk right there. So I'm just carefully cutting just the vinyl out. There we go. Actually, I cut kind of close on there. That one did. Alrighty, and now we want to turn it. So kind of a trick to turning is inside where your opening is, these corners should come out first, and if these corners you pull them out first, the rest of your bag should come out really good. So you want to pull the corners out and poke those corners. Hold it and go to the next corner. And you want to bring that corner out and poke it as well. Get the corners poked out. So I've got these two like rabbit ears pulled out. So once these two, like I said, are pulled out, it starts to come out a lot easier. You just roll it out. You pull a little bit and push. So there we go. I use a chopstick. I happen to just, when you go to the restaurant, grab a thing of chopsticks, and there you go. And this is where I make sure I poke the corners out. And the bag's not turned right. This is still the inside of the bag, but we're going to work on the inside so we can close up our seam here. And this will be tricky. You'll learn a little bit. Because I cut a little short on my fabric. I used the wrong pattern. Alrighty. So I have a strip of heat and bond. I'm going to add a little extra piece because this is open here. But your opening that you'd be closing up is here. And it's going to be 2 7/8. So I have a strip of heat and bond, and I'll show you how that works in a second when I move over to the ironing board. Okay, so I have my strip of heat and bond, have my iron on. I ironed it out a little bit, you know, kind of flat, get my edges rolled over by the vinyl so they lay nice. And then the top is well ironed down a little bit. So I placed the strip of the heat and bond on the side that has the most bulk. so the side that has the vinyl turned and the folded over part. The top piece here is the thin part with the lining. It'll be easier to, I'll show you that. So this top part is just the single layer liner, and then you're going to first tack your strip down to the thicker part where it's rolled in. So you want to attach that, and then that way it's going to be easier to iron the top of it and get it to attach. And trying to get the heat through the thickness doesn't always work. So I make sure that it's tacked and let it cool for a second so I can take the strip off. So the strip is inside right there. It's still kind of warm. So peel it off, and you fold it over, make sure it lines up. Iron's messed up. And it's nice and sealed up. So it's all good, nice and sealed. And then we're going to, once it cools down, double check. Since we have the opening wide open, flip the one corner, flip the other corner, pop it out. And be sure to not iron on the vinyl side, or ruin your iron. This is the back side with the fabric. So I do a quick iron over it just to get the seams to roll back over. Get it smoothed out so it looks nice. I'll iron the top part, that's just the fabric part. Oops. So how I finish off the bag, I add a wristlet to it, and I actually put a charm on my zipper. Special thing, and everything's okay. Make sure there's, no threads hanging out, and I have a perfect bag. So thanks for watching. This was my tutorial on the zipper pouch from Spunky Stitches. This happens to be the Minnie Mouse. And if you like my video, give me a thumbs up. If you have any suggestions, leave them down in the comments. And don't forget to hit subscribe. See you next time.